Welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, a show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives in the world's leading global brands. Today, we're joined by Anna Mindelöf, who's the Chief HR Officer at Fenix Outdoor. Welcome to the show. How are you, Anna?
Thank you so much. Pleasure being here. I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for asking.
Thanks for joining us. Where are you joining us from today?
I live in Stockholm, or outside Stockholm, Sweden.
Nice. How's it there? Nice and hot?
Very warm to be Sweden. It's around 28 degrees. We are used to it from the summer 2019 and 2018, but it's warm. You're
like, it's like the UK, right? We're never prepared for the heat.
Right, exactly.
Before we jump in, tell everyone a little bit about yourself, sort of your background and journey, and also about the business for people that aren't aware of the brand.
So I'm Anna. I have been working with HR questions for around 20 years. I did not at all start with HR when I was leaving school. I was in sales, logistics, and worked for bigger IT companies without any academic merits. And then I realized that I probably should have listened to my dad and done those studies. Today I'm heading up Fenix Outdoor as an CHRO since a little bit more than a year back in time. It feels longer since COVID came. Before that, I was working for Ericsson the last 4.5 years within the talent management space and talent acquisition space. And before that, I did around 10 years in various positions within Adidas Group, both in Germany and in Sweden.
Tell everyone a little bit more about Fenix, the company.
Yes, so Fenix is not a very well-known employee brand yet. I hope it will be.
I like the caveat.
Yeah, but we are owning brands like Fjällräven, Primus, CHRO, Hanwag, which is a German brand, and Royal Robins from the US. And we are also having some of the retail chains in the Nordics, like Naturkompaniet, Partioaita in Finland, Friluftsland in Denmark, and the big chain Globetrotter in Germany. Yeah. So it's a mix of brands that we, of course, sell to our own retail stores, but also to others. So we both sell wholesale and retail.
Obviously, to today's topic, obviously, culture and belonging, the glue that makes us an organization. And that was part of a sentence that I took from our first chat for everyone listening. Yeah, you didn't plan that, Anna. You just said it, and I was like, "Oh, interesting topic for the show." When you think about culture, right? It's a big buzzword that everyone loves to throw around. What does culture mean to you?
That's what we do in the organization. So it's not so much about the buzzwords that maybe even this is a buzzword like culture and belonging. We talk a lot about inclusion, and we talk a lot about the iceberg. I'm even showing that in some of my presentations internally, right? So iceberg is with the model where some of it, a small portion is what you see, but it's a lot underneath and under the surface that you can't see. Sometimes we say that culture is in the walls. I'm not sure that's the case. It is what we do each day, and we can, of course, change the culture by adding people into the organization that have different perspectives and so forth. So when we hire, we should try to hire culture add into the organization instead of hiring for culture fit, which we used to do. In all companies, I think we have a tendency to, but that person doesn't really fit into the culture that we have. Okay, so what culture is it that you're talking about? Is it the current culture, or is it what we should achieve later on, 5-10 years from now? But for me, culture it doesn't really matter if you have an excellent business strategy. If the culture is not a positive one and you help people to perform in the organization through the culture, it doesn't really matter. And also, it's the way things are done and the how more than what the top management is saying. We can try to steer it from the top, right? But if the employees in the organization is doing totally differently, that is what will be the culture anyhow.
You made a good point there, because most of the time the culture programs or initiatives are driven top down, right?
Yeah, very much so.
And doesn't, so is a job of the culture for everyone, or is it for the leaders?
No, for everyone. I think that the leaders, we can impact, and the culture will exist even though we're not working on it, right? Even though I'm as an CHRO says, no, it's not important, it still will exist. How we talk to each other, if we are calling or sending emails, or how do we interact, and how do we make feel that people really, really feel I'm working here because I want to, and I choose it every single day when I go to the office or go into Teams like it is now. I'm choosing to be here and add value to the organization. That's what I would like to see, that everyone had this kind of feeling. And I decided probably maybe 10 years ago or a little bit more that as soon as I feel that I can't really impact any longer, or it's not fun, then you sort of feel that I need to go elsewhere and I need to start all over again. So I've been changing companies, not a lot, but sometimes, in order to get that new stuff and start from the beginning a little bit again, even though it's known areas, because HR is still HR.
That's a really cool point you mentioned, because that's quite a theme amongst your peers that I've heard over the years, that whenever they're leaving, it's where they feel like they can't add any more value. So it's not that they don't want to leave. It's not that they don't like the company or they don't love the relationship with their team. It's like, and same with me as well. I want to go somewhere where I feel like I can have impact. And that's typically why they leave an organization, is when they get to that point. Super interesting there. What are some of the things that you do practically, like for everyone listening, practical things that you do to try and impact the culture?
Talking to people, listening to people, of course, but setting up forums for doing that. So I think we had so many plans before we went into 2020, and then COVID came. And in HR, we had to react on the things, right? You need to do a lot of policies and stuff like that. Boring stuff. I hate that, but it's absolutely needed. Policies and guidelines and stuff like that, that's for people who have not common sense. And some people are not having common sense. So therefore, we need policies.
The policies for the small, the very few, but unfortunately, they impact everyone else.
Right, absolutely. But what we did then was that we shifted from not having that many trainings face-to-face, but at least a big portion of trainings. We shifted them to a virtual setting. And I created something that I call Leadership Insights. And we started to send that out. First, we only had Zoom sessions because we just introduced Teams, Microsoft Teams, in March. So just before COVID came and hit us badly, so to say. Sorry?
It's good timing then.
Yeah, it was really good timing. And now no one will survive without having it. It's almost like that. But what we did was that we created this Leadership Insights, which was weekly. And we had one workshop per week for all leaders that wanted to join virtually. And that's a great opportunity for people who are in smaller countries or in small units who seldom get that kind of opportunity. And you get that sort of feeling and the glow in the organization that everyone belongs. So I started with talking a lot about change, of course, in March, and how you can think in order to survive in this change that we are seeing. And then we had a workshop together with the CHRO team, so sustainability team, regarding the Fenix Way. And the Fenix Way is a compass that we are using, where N stands for the nature, the E for the economy, the S for the society, and V or West, well-being. And of course, HR is very much into the well-being, right? And we talked about this and we addressed this, and we had some sessions about it. And then after a couple of weeks, and also in this Leadership Insights, of course, we have book recommendations, podcasts, things that leaders easily can take on in order to learn a little bit more. And we have continued with that. And then what we also have been doing, and I know we talked about this last time, and you were like, yeah, that's cool. We are doing an internal podcast.
Yay!
And I remember you told me you should do that externally. And now it seems like we might be able to launch some of the sessions that we are doing.
I think for your customers, your investors, for everyone's potential talent that may want to join your organization, being able to hear from you, the team, and the transparency will be super refreshing. It's like the audio glass door. Like that's the way I look at it. They're going to find out anyway, right? So being transparent, open, I feel like is the future, and is what people like. If I'm going to choose to either work at Fenix or someone else, and I get to hear from you, the team, and understand where the business is, I'm much more likely to go and work with you.
And one thing that I think is important, I mean, in those podcasts that we have different people speaking, we really interview, we will have different tracks. And in January, I had the opportunity to hire our first internal comms manager. and he actually did his master within podcasting.
Oh,
so it's cool actually. And he was in our trainee program last year, and he was like pitching that he wanted to work with me in HR and with internal comms. So he got that position. That's awesome when you work for a smaller company, right? You just create the position for the person.
100%. And so the title of this episode, that's something for people to build a culture of belonging, inclusion, and the glue. Having like your own internal podcast and external, hopefully in the future, is so cool to hear from different leaders, different functions, from different people of backgrounds and origins, and like that is I'm super excited about that. I'm so happy you're doing that. I've been saying, as you know, obviously, because I was telling you, please do it. I've been saying, like, from a cost, especially as a communication tool, right, for you and the team, like and you're going where people are. So rather than
and it's not expensive. The equipment is not that expensive at all. So it's pretty easily done, and don't be afraid to do it. I think it's awesome.
That's
so we have one episode launched every week.
Wow.
and so people are listening into it, they get to know people. But moreover, what we are doing with it is also the episodes in there will be in our onboarding program. So we in January, February, we also started to build our new digitalized onboarding program. And that means that we will have sessions on our different brands and people who are speaking that you can join virtually now through the onboarding tool, which would be awesome, actually.
Yeah. What's the format, by the way, for the leadership ones? How many people, and how do you make room for everyone to talk, or is it just in the comments? What's the format?
No, they can participate and they can unmute. That's what you can do in Teams. We have had, when I did the workshop on Fenix Way, we were around 100 persons. So, and that's possible. I mean, when I was working for Ericsson, we had other tools. We were having Adobe Connect, and you could have 1,000 people.
Yeah, it's more like how to make room for everyone to speak, though, right? Because sometimes it's quite intimidating. Like, I'm on a call with 100 people. Do I really want to ask that question?
Right.
Yeah.
So, and it's very different cultures in different parts of the world in Phoenix. So if, for instance, you are a German person or based in Germany, you probably are a little bit more hesitant to speak up in that big crowd. It sounds like I have a big bias, but this is due to experience in our company.
I get it.
In the US, you would, of course, speak up. That's what you do. You are trained in that. And so it's interesting, and you learn a lot when you do this. But of course, we ask people to add comments and questions and try to make it interactive through the chat function. But you can also speak up if you want to. So we give those different opportunities and try to engage. And we are learning while doing, right? I'm pretty used to hold those big sessions in other companies, but not everyone is working with me. So we are in it together, and we are trying to make it excellent.
I think it's a great idea. Just being exposed to different leaders across different regions, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, even though it's virtually, it's great to make those connections, because otherwise they would never normally cross paths. And those relationships, this is what really breeds culture, communication, and obviously the innovation that will come out of that, of just connecting those different functions and different leaders is super, super important. Had a question on LinkedIn, from a change management cultural perspective, when you want sort of 21st century conscious servant leadership, as opposed to old Victorian style command and control, do you have any experience in joining organizations where they have that typical old Victorian style of command and control, and you're trying to then move them to a culture driven 21st century conscious leadership?
Of course. So I've been working in many different organizations, and also in different units, I would say, depending on where you are placed and so forth. So the tricky piece is when you work for an organization where maybe employees expect something, but leaders expect something different. And how do you sort of move the needle? That's why I created the leadership insights and the learning insights. Like you said in the beginning, Chris, we are not only trying to impact the culture from above, we are also making pressure from the bottom. So it's also bottom up.
Yes.
So I try to train and reach out to people in the organization. And I learned when I was working for Ericsson, I actually really, really use the talents in the organization, in that sense that I try to involve them. We have alumni talents who have been in our trainee programs for years, and I'm using them and get insights, and they help me to also impact and influence in the organization.
Using the bottom upward approach to influence the leaders, perhaps to expose them to this is what your your employees and your organization saying, how they want to be led, and this is the culture, as opposed to trying to drive it from the top down.
Yes, because it's if it comes from me, it's sometimes it's like, yeah, that's HR.
I get it.
But if it comes from the business or from the people in the organization, this is what our talents are saying, guys, then it's totally different. It's okay, yeah. And they know the business because they are in the business.
Yeah. So kind of find those champions within the organization and that top talent and use their voice to kind of deliver that message, as opposed to it coming from HR.
Yes. Not that it's anything wrong with coming from HR.
No, of course. No, it's a good tactic, right? No, I'm sure for everyone listening, it makes complete sense, right? Why not do that? Because I can see how it can be portrayed that way. But when it's coming from those leaders and employees and that top talent themselves, then, it's hard to ignore. Talking about culture, virtual, have you onboarded people virtually during this? If so, how did that go?
No, actually, we haven't yet. But we will. From 1st of September, we have 4 new trainees coming in. It's a brilliant concept. So we have a small group, very thorough assessment period during the spring. And then we hired 4 persons that will, the intention is to sort of travel the world for them. But of course, that will not happen during COVID. We need to do a lot of what we're doing virtually. But they will be sort of the first ones that actually will have the first full journey. And we have been preparing for this for 4 months, I think. And of course, we stopped all recruitment. So now we have some positions that we are recruiting for. So people will come in and they will use it and so forth. Everything will be on the mobile. Yeah. But we are steering it back end, and they will be able to listen to everything and join everything through the mobile.
Mm-hmm. So that's cool. What platform do you use? What platform do you use?
We use a platform called Typelane.
Okay, and that brings all your content together and community, stuff like that?
So it's a back-end tool that we in HR can use, and where we post things and create the journeys for the different positions or different companies.
Okay. I'm with you.
But then we have like messages sent to the phone, and you join there by links.
Okay.
So they don't see what we see. And so
of course. Yeah. But all sounds like a great tool.
Yeah.
That's what you need.
So the cool stuff is that you can support the managers, right? So you can an SMS will go out to the manager saying, tomorrow Chris is starting, and you should meet him in the reception area at 9. And then you send a mail or a message to the onboardee, and you say to that person, at Fjällräven or at Fenix, we wear this kind of clothing, and you can park your car, or when you come with the subway and whatever it is. So we sort of can help the managers in a much better way, and also to schedule one-to-ones and what kind of things they need to have in there.
It just makes it a better user experience for everyone.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's also going to a place they're not going to miss it, because if they get an email, they may miss it, or
absolutely
having it on your mobile, where everyone's always got the mobile in their hand, so it's just so much easier to do it now. Makes complete sense.
But onboarding is also about culture, that you really feel from the beginning that you belong to and you are included. So that's why I think it's super important with the full candidate experience, and then the employee experience, of course, when they are sort of moving into becoming an employee.
Yeah, and especially the new kind of generation coming through as well. That's where they want to be communicated. They don't want to go and check their email. Send me a text.
No, we also have a discussion internally now that's really interesting. So since we are shifting from emails and intranets and whatever it's called to Teams, should we only communicate through Teams internally? And of course, that's what we expect in the future. But when is it time to shift completely?
That's nice. That frees up your emails, right? Like my team, we only communicate through WhatsApp. Yeah. So there's never any communication between me and my team, my inbox, which I love, because it's just otherwise it's just so much going on in there, and I can miss things, and it's just time consuming.
But if you're used to communicate through mail and you don't really know exactly how it will work in the future, you stay on the safe side, right? So let's communicate through mail. And then you don't know because you have messages in Teams and in WhatsApp and you have it on
that's
email.
How everyone, that's the problem.
Confusing.
Yeah, most companies I speak to now, they've got too many. They've got email, they've got Slack, they've got WhatsApp, they've got Teams, and it's just like all different.
But
you do need
that's also something that we are working on to create a global internal communication standard or policy, whatever you would like to call it, with town hall meetings, with who is communicating to whom at what point and about what. So we are doing a lot of those things, which is pretty nice actually, because before joining Fenix, I was never ever heading up communications, even though I worked with it daily.
It's even more important during these times where you have virtual fatigue. We were talking about it before the show. Like, you need to put systems and automations in place to say, Chris is probably asleep right now, so probably not the best time to send him all of these messages. And then, or you send it and it sends it later, right? It sends it at a time where I'm actually going to be awake. And what I found with too many different communication channels, I'm not sure if people listening on LinkedIn yourself can relate, that you can never turn off. Because like they always get hold of you. They're like, if I can't get Chris here, I'll email him. If I can't get here, I'll send him a WhatsApp or a Zoom link, and it's just too much. Too many different. I can't wake up every day and check 5 channels to make sure I haven't missed the message.
Many people do.
I know. I still do now. I got maybe the 2 or 3, but we've narrowed it down now. If we're not speaking via WhatsApp, we do in kind of video calls. We use Zoom, and that's it. Like we never email each other, because I just don't think it's a great form of communication as well, email.
So we will see where we land. Eventually, if it's now or if it's later on this year, we will need to only work through Teams.
When we last spoke, I think, maybe I'm wrong, but you were just about to do your first unconscious bias training. Was that right? Have I made that up?
Yeah, I did one for leaders.
Yeah.
And we record all our sessions. It went well. It was, I think, 60, 70 persons joining. And we discussed it because it was in the middle of this Black Lives Matters happenings. Just started at that time in the US. And so we have continued with it. We did one session for all leaders, and it's recorded and everyone can watch it or listen to it. And then we do other kind of trainings on unconscious bias. We are targeting store people in different ways and help them with different questions, and they get scenarios that they can work with. So this is happening in your store. How do you react or how do you act? And one of my colleagues in the US, Diana, she's doing a lot also for the retail people, specifically in the US, because of the big movement that Life Matters.
Yeah.
So it's different in different parts of the world, depending on what we are focusing on, of course. But a tricky topic to raise with a lot of, also within HR, people are not really comfortable with talking about unconscious biases.
Even within your own department,
No, of course not. Everyone knows that we have biases, but we might not really know that it's visible to others.
Hence the unconscious part.
Yeah, exactly. So we try to make them conscious instead. So I can take a conscious decision if I should trust my bias or do something different. So we are actually having a circle or 3 different circles for the HR people at the moment, where we talk about an unconscious bias training, which is run by LinkedIn. So we are using the LinkedIn trainings a lot within HR.
Okay. How was it? So the first one you did, was it like you sent out communication and people could opt in? Or did you
absolutely, yes. And that was for leaders, and it's like a workshop, and it takes 1.5 hours, and they can ask questions, and we do case studies.
You delivered that?
I led that.
What's the structure? What did that look like? What did the structure look like?
Yeah, so talking about what is diversity, what is inclusion, and what do we mean when we talk about that. And then we talk a little bit about different biases, what kind of biases exist. Mm-hmm. Do you recognize yourself in any of this? I talk a little bit about my biases, so it's okay that you have a bias.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then we do cases, and in those cases, it's examples of things that have happened either in our organization or in other organizations, like real cases. Sorry?
to make it relatable to people.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then we have continued with having small sessions with deep dives, not workshops, but material and videos and so forth that you can read through on your own. And we have created the channeling teams that we call Leadership Insights, where we place everything and everyone can access it. It's awesome, actually. We get a lot of good feedback on it.
Yeah, I will listen. My next question was, what was the feedback? Because obviously it's not always, it's uncomfortable, and that's part of it, of course.
Yeah, it's super uncomfortable.
Yeah. What was the feedback?
Yeah. And then, but what I'm doing with the HR team is to help them a little bit on, because of course we get a lot of questions as HR from leaders. So how should I do this and that? And so we have like frequently asked questions from leaders that we talk about in the HR team.
What are some of those frequently asked questions, if you don't mind me asking?
It can be everything from that something really happened in the store. How should I act on this? To if it's in the store environment, but it can also be, do we have any global diversity and inclusion goals? Or what kind of goals do we have? What are we heading for? Are those trainings mandatory for everyone? Stuff like that, they of course ask. But it's also more hands-on, that people have been facing things and they don't really know how to act.
On a case-by-case basis, there's going to be a lot of very specific ones. Get it.
Yeah.
Well, interesting. I'm really happy that you did it, because there are certain organizations that kind of avoided the topic.
That we can't do.
They're too worried about saying, they're too worried about saying the wrong thing. And I was even the same. I did a LinkedIn video sort of talking about my experiences and my perspective, and I was like, does anyone care about Chris's perspective? Is anyone going to judge me? It's quite it's people are worried about saying the wrong thing, so don't say anything at all. But that's part of the problem. Yeah,
exactly.
So
we say the wrong things, and shit happens. So I mean,
that's also okay. Yeah, exactly. We don't have to claim to have all the answers, and if you don't know, ask. I know. But I'm conscious of time, so thanks so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure. I'm sure, like everyone else on here, we're super excited to hear your podcast. So you have to drop me a message.
I will.
If you manage to get approval, now you're the head of comms as well. Hopefully you can approve it to go external as well, and we can or at the very least take some clips and post them on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I can do that. That would be awesome, actually. But it's not really. Yeah, I will try to do that. I will ask Ulrich how to do it. He's my millennial that I'm talking to.
All right. What he can do is he can do if it's just audio, we could do like the thumbnail and then the audio playing.
Right. Exactly.
And do it that way, because that would be cool. As well. If Ulrich needs any help, tell him to give me a call.
Yeah.
I will. But look,
I will ask him.
Before we wrap up, if there's sort of parting piece of advice for everyone, what would that be? In terms of creating a culture of belonging, what would that be? And then where's the best place for everyone to connect with you? If they want to say hello, reach out to you, Anna. Where's the best place they can get hold of you?
LinkedIn is absolutely. Don't drop me any emails, please. Just reach out on LinkedIn. I'm actually I'm answering a lot of stuff. Almost everything that is sort of sent to me on LinkedIn, I'm answering, even though it's a lot. So feel free to do that. I really think that's fun and to connect that way. My best advice, I think that as an HR person, you should reach out to people who are in the organization and ask them how they see upon culture. Don't take for granted that what you see is how it's perceived, because that's seldom the case. You have your own perspective, and ask for what would make the difference. If someone is not feeling, if someone feel excluded, if you get that in any survey that you are running or however you get that information, then ask them what would make you feel included. Because it's also a decision, individual decision, if I want to belong or not. It's not only what we do as an organization, it's you who need to decide if you belong or not to the organization too.
Interesting. Yeah, fantastic. Well, look, thanks so much. I really appreciate you joining us. Hopefully I get to
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
For everyone on LinkedIn, thanks for tuning in again on the Monday here to join us. If you're new to the podcast, obviously head over to hrdleaders.com/podcast. You can subscribe there, listen whenever you want on any platform that you want. Apart from that, I look forward to seeing you all soon. I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a great week, Anna, and I'll see you again soon. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks,
See ya.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.